38 Years of Silence. The Hunt for Margaret McWilliam's Killer. A routine jog, a brutal attack, a mystery that refuses to die. Welcome to Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's True Crime Podcast. I'm your host, J. Nickel Investigations. Today, we're stepping back to 1987 to explore a case that has lingered in the shadows of Toronto's history for nearly 4 decades. The unsolved murder of Margaret McWilliam. Known as the Cinderella Murder, this tragic story is one of a young woman's life stolen, family's relentless pursuit of answers, and a mystery that investigators are still determined to crack. Stay with me as we uncover the details of this haunting cold case and ask for your help in bringing justice to Margaret. Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's True Crime Podcast. It's a gripping true crime podcast uncovering unsolved murders, disappearances, and forgotten crimes from Ontario and beyond. Filled with deep research, compelling storytelling, and a voice for the victims. Join us today, where every clue will lead to answers, and every case deserves a second look. August 27, 1987. Sun is dipping below the horizon in Toronto, casting a warm glow over the city. Margaret McWilliam, a 21-year-old student at Ryerson University, slips on her running shoes and heads out for a jog in Warden Park. It's routine she's followed countless times, a moment of peace after a busy day. But that night, Margaret wouldn't make it home. What happened in that park would shatter her family, stun a community, and leave behind a case that remains unsolved to this day. Let's start with who Margaret was. Born on September 21st, 1965, Margaret was a bright, driven young woman with a promising future. She was studying at Ryerson University, balancing her education with 2 part-time jobs. One as a receptionist, another as a dining room supervisor at Fellowship Towers, a seniors residence now called David Hill Senior Living. She lived alone in a basement apartment on Santa Monica Boulevard in Toronto, just a short distance from Warden Park, where she often jogged to unwind. Friends and colleagues remember her as a kind-hearted and responsible, always ready with a smile. She'd often run with her Walkman, headphones on, lost in her music, a snapshot of a young woman embracing life. But that Thursday evening around 7:00 p.m., everything changed. Margaret left her apartment, leaving her keys hanging on the doorknob, a small detail that tells us she planned to return soon. She made her way to Warden Park, entering near Warden Avenue and St. Clair Avenue East. It was a public space, familiar and safe, or so she thought. Somewhere along that path, an unknown assailant was waiting. Margaret was ambushed. She was dragged off the trail into a secluded wooded area of the park. There, she endured a vicious attack. Beaten, sexually assaulted, and strangled with a piece of her own jogging suit. Evidence of the scene showed she didn't go quietly. Facial bruises revealed her desperate fight against her attacker. But despite her resistance, she couldn't overcome the brutality of that moment. The next morning, August 28, 1987, a police dog uncovered her body in the bush on the east side of the path. The discovery marked the beginning of a case that would grip Toronto, logged by the Toronto Police 41 Division as Homicide, number 36/1987. Margaret McWilliam, a young woman with so much ahead of her, was gone. The investigation. The investigation launched immediately and with full force. Police scoured the park, interviewing anyone who might have seen something, and collected every scrap of evidence they could find. One of the standout clues was a distinctive shoe print near the crime scene. A Korean-made gray and white runner, vinyl tops, and the letters AAU stamped on the heel. These shoes were sold only at Bata Shoe Stores in Canada, earning the case its haunting nickname, the Cinderella Murder. It was a lead that promised a breakthrough, but it hasn't yet led to an arrest. Another critical piece of evidence emerged years later. In 2016, investigators announced they developed a DNA profile from skin cells found in Margaret's sweater. This was a game changer, a direct link to her killer. But when they ran it through the National DNA Databank, there was no match. That dead end has fueled speculation. Could the perpetrator be deceased? Did he leave Canada? The DNA remains a silent witness, waiting for a name. Then there's the witness description. Someone saw a man leaving the park shortly after 8 o'clock p.m. that night. A light-skinned black man in his 30s, with a thin mustache and a muscular build, wearing a red hat. Was he the killer? A passerby? Decades later, we still don't know. No one has come forward to identify him. He remains a ghostly figure in this story. Investigators have pieced together a psychological profile of the suspect over the years. They believe he struggled with communication and relationships with women, possibly bouncing between jobs and grappling with substance abuse. They think he might have experienced family trauma, perhaps violence or emotional turmoil with his mother around the time of the murder. It's a portrait of a troubled individual, but it hasn't been enough to pinpoint him. Up next, the suspects. The suspects. Over the decades, a few names have surfaced as potential suspects, only to be ruled out. Paul Bernardo. Background: Paul Bernardo, known as the Scarborough Rapist, was a serial rapist and murderer active in the Scarborough area of Toronto during the late 1980s and early 1990s. His criminal activities included a series of violent rapes between 1987 and 1990, followed by the murders of 3 young women, including his wife Carla Homolka's sister, Tammy Homolka. He was arrested in 1993 and convicted in 1995. Why was he considered? Margaret McWilliam was murdered in 1987 while jogging in Warden Woods Park, located in Scarborough, the same area where Bernardo carried out many of his attacks. Timing overlapped with his known period of activity as a Scarborough rapist, whose identity was still unknown at the time of Margaret's death. Bernardo's pattern targeting vulnerable women in public or semi-public spaces made him a plausible suspect. Why he was ruled out. DNA evidence collected from Margaret's sweater did not match Bernardo's DNA, which was on file after his arrest. His crimes were later linked to specific DNA evidence, but none of it connected him to Margaret's case. Additionally, while Bernardo's attacks often involved stalking women near bus stops or in residential areas, Margaret's murder in a park during a jog did not perfectly align with his typical methods. Police confirmed through DNA testing that Bernardo was not involved. Russell Williams. Background: Russell Williams was a former colonel in the Royal Canadian Air Force, arrested in 2010 for the murders of 2 women and numerous sexual assaults and burglaries in Ontario. His crimes, committed between 2007 and 2010, came to light decades after Margaret's murder, but his arrest prompted speculation from her family. Why he was considered. In 2010, following Williams' arrest, Margaret's mother, Charlotte McWilliam, inquired about a possible connection. Williams had ties to Scarborough. He attended the University of Toronto, Scarborough, graduating in 1986, and lived in the area as a teenager. His crimes involved sexual violence and murder, raising questions about whether he could have been active earlier than documented. The geographic and thematic overlap led to this consideration. Why he was ruled out. No evidence links Williams to Margaret's 1987 murder. His known criminal activity began in 2007, over 20 years later, and occurred in different regions of Ontario, such as Tweed and Belleville. His modus operandi, breaking into homes and assaulting women while they slept, differed significantly from the outdoor opportunistic attack on Margaret in a park. Police investigations found no connection, and his DNA did not match the profile from Margaret's crime scene. James Marr. Background. James Marr was convicted in 1994 for the 1992 murder of Martha Watson McKinnon in Toronto. McKinnon was beaten, strangled, and sexually assaulted, and her body was found behind an apartment building. Similarities to Margaret's case led some to speculate about Marr's involvement. Why he was considered. Both Margaret's and McKinnon's murders involved brutal attacks on women in Toronto. Strangulation and sexual assault as common elements. Marr's crime occurred in 1992, 5 years after Margaret's death. By the proximity in time and location, within a few hundred meters of Margaret's murder, along with the nature of the attacks, prompted some to wonder if he could be responsible for other unsolved cases, including Margaret's. Why he was ruled out. DNA evidence from Margaret's case apparently did not match James Marr. The DNA profile developed from skin cells on Margaret's sweater ruled him out as the perpetrator. Additionally, Marr's documented criminal activity began in the 1990s, and there is no evidence tying him to crimes in 1987. Police have not established any direct link between Marr and Margaret's murder. The prevailing theory: crime of opportunity. Overview: the leading theory among investigators is that Margaret McWilliam's murder was a crime of opportunity, committed by an unknown assailant who did not know her personally. Supporting evidence: no prior connection. There is no indication that Margaret knew her attacker. She was jogging alone in Warden Woods Park, a routine activity that likely made her a target of convenience. DNA results. The DNA profile from the crime scene does not match any known individuals in Canada's National DNA Databank, suggesting the perpetrator may not have a prior conviction requiring DNA submission, or could be deceased or no longer in the country. Circumstances. The attack took place in a secluded park area, ideal for an opportunistic assault. A distinctive shoe print from a Korean-made runner sold at Bata Shoe Stores was found at the scene, as not being traced to a specific suspect. Why it's likely. This theory is common in unsolved cases where no clear motive or relationship between victim and attacker exists. Margaret's vulnerability, alone in a public space, likely attracted a random predator who seized the moment to strike. Paul Bernardo Russell Williams and James Marr were considered as potential suspects in Margaret McWilliam's 1987 murder due to their criminal histories and ties to the Toronto area. But DNA evidence and investigative findings have definitively ruled them out. The prevailing theory of a crime of opportunity by an unknown assailant remains the most credible explanation, supported by the lack of a victim-perpetrator connection and the circumstances of the attack. Ongoing advancements in forensic technology such as genetic genealogy may eventually identify the killer and provide answers in this decades-old case. Up next, keeping the case alive. keeping the case alive. The impact of Margaret's family has been profound. Her mother, Charlotte McWilliam, has been a steadfast voice in the quest for justice. In a 2010 interview, she shared the torment of uncertainty, saying, "You always think every time something comes into the media, this person possibly be the one who was involved in Margaret's death." Charlotte and the family have kept the case alive, their pain matched only by their determination. The public has played a role too. Over the years, appeals have kept Margaret's story in the spotlight. In 2016, Detective Sergeant Stacey Gallant, head of the Homicide Cold Case Section, released a video on YouTube. His message was direct. "We have his DNA. We just need his name." He urged anyone who might know the offender, family, friends, anyone, to come forward. The case is being featured in media like the TV show To Catch a Killer in 2014. Now here in our podcast, each retelling a plea for that one tip that could break it open. Hope on the horizon. Today, as of July 2025, Margaret's murder remains unsolved. There's hope on the horizon. Advances in genetic genealogy, using DNA to trace family trees, have cracked other cold cases, and investigators are optimistic it could work here too. The Toronto police haven't given up, and neither should we. If you have any information, no matter how small, please reach out. Contact the Homicide Unit of 416-808-7400 or email homicide@torontopolice.on.ca. You can also call Crime Stoppers anonymously at 416-222-TIPS. That's 416-222-8477. Or visit www.222tips.com. Your tip could be the key. Margaret McWilliam's story is a heartbreaking reminder of what's lost when a life is taken too soon, what's left unresolved when justice eludes us. She was a daughter, a student, a friend, stolen in a moment of senseless violence. Her family deserves closure. Her killer deserves to face the consequences. You know something, now's the time to speak. Thanks for joining me on Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's True Crime Podcast. I'm Jay Nickel. I'll be back next time to shine a light in another story waiting for its ending. Till then, stay safe and keep listening, because every case deserves answers and every victim deserves justice. Subscribe now to Ontario Cold Cases, Canada's True Crime Podcast. Episodes available wherever you get your podcasts.